Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Meet the Judge live on Facebook and YouTube. Before I introduce my guest tonight, once again, I have to mention the fact, well, it's been a terrible week for Irish dogs in the fact that we have lost 4 dog people this week, most of which have been taken from us too soon. Jane Wilkinson, who most of you will know, works for the Irish Kennel Club. You will all have met her at Patrick's Day from in one form or another, working away behind the desks. Jane was very young. I know she had been battling illness for a while, but sadly she succumbed to it. Golden Retrievers lost Margaret Cummins this week. Again, Gundog people will have known Margaret. Always smiling, always good humoured. She had a wicked sense of humour, and just one of life's nice people. Today I learned that our good friend Michael Killeen King passed away, and again Michael had been battling with illness for some time, and he has left a young family behind him, so our thoughts go out to Michael's family. And Ernie Smith, president of Bangor North Down. Anybody who's in pastoral breeds will know Ernie. He was a very well-known Sheltie person, and as I say, it's been a devastating week for Irish dogs, and our thoughts and our condolences go to all of their families at this difficult time. My guest tonight hails from the UK, Scotland. Gundog handler predominantly, but also handles many other breeds. A breeder, exhibitor of Gordon Setters, Weimaraners, Pointers, amongst other breeds. He's very well known in the UK. He's probably one of the UK's most popular professional handlers, and is an extraordinarily good breeder. David Alcorn. Good evening, David.
Hi everyone.
How are you?
Thank you for that introduction. That was quite something.
How have you been?
Yeah, good, thank you. Very good. We're very busy here, and it's nice to be getting back to a little bit of normality with shows coming back, which is great. We have had 2 open shows and a champ show so far, and then more to look forward to. So hopefully the wheels are in motion for a bit more normality again. And
have you coped in the last 18 months? Have you missed dog shows, or were you glad of the break?
In some ways, I was glad of the break, and in a lot of ways, I've missed them an awful lot. I've missed an awful lot of the people more than anything. I think we're all probably the same, that we miss a lot of aspects of them, but then there are other aspects that we don't miss, such as getting up at 2 o'clock in the morning and long drives there, and then long drives home, and then maybe not winning what we think we ought to win and things like that, and then having wet, rainy days at shows is never nice either. So yeah, we don't miss those, but then we miss good results, success, our own success, our friends' success. We missed meeting up with people, seeing new dogs, and just chatting dogs and chatting about everything to do with dogs and everything else surrounding that as well. So yeah, I have missed shows, but I've been very lucky that I have a small holding as well as the dogs. We have a flock of Shetland sheep which have kept me busy, so they need sort of something doing them every other day. They need to be, I hand shear them all, so that needs to get done. So that took up a week or 2 of my life last year doing that again. And all the jobs that I've put off since moving in here about 5 years ago, I was able to do, which included awful, dreadful things like painting and decorating and all the boring stuff that nobody likes. So yeah, I suppose it was nice to have a little bit of time off, but goodness, it's a lot nicer to be back.
So you're very lucky in the fact that dog shows are back in coming back slowly. I mean, they're not going to be back here this year. We're informed, which none of us can understand. But however, how have they gone? How did Southern Counties go, for instance? There was a lot of controversy on Facebook about people perhaps not wearing face masks in the ring, etc., etc.
Yeah,
were the restrictions tight?
I thought it went well. I thought it was well run. It was well managed, and And to all the people who are continual complainers and whingers and moaners, then, you know, all they need to do is contact the Kennel Club and find out their local canine society. And I'm sure they will be delighted to have all these people that know better than everyone else joining their committee to help out. I don't see very many of the ones that sit on Facebook and complain about anything. I don't actually see them sitting on committees of open shows, or especially championship shows as well.
Yes.
Actually take an awful lot of work to put together. So, you know, if you feel you're in a position to criticise, then you should also be in a position to lend a hand and help out. So that would be my first thing. But Southern Counties itself was great to get back to, because it was social. It felt a bit garden party-like. We all had our tents and gazebos. We were lucky the weather was good until the Sunday afternoon. It was sunny, it was dry, it was warm, it was great, and it had this feeling of kind of everybody being let out for the spring sort of thing. It was quite it felt safe. It didn't feel like everybody was being silly. It didn't feel like nobody gave a toss about the rules. People weren't always wearing masks in the ring because they don't have to. People weren't always wearing masks in the group ring because it's classed as an outdoor building and they didn't have to either. And as far as I could see, the majority of people were happy to comply with the rules. I mean, I couldn't understand one of the things that people got a bit excited about on Facebook was the non-disinfecting of the table between each dog when it had been off the table. But they seemed to be okay to walk around the ring and let their dog jump up at the fence and walk on the same bit of the floor that the previous dog had been on. So I'm not quite sure where Corona suddenly is an incubus of the particular plague on a judging table itself. But
I mean, you can't pick it up from dogs, for God's sake.
Well, yeah, I don't quite know where the excitement about that came from, but there you go. So yeah.
And how's the whole tent thing going? Because this is all brand new for UK exhibitors and Scottish exhibitors, isn't it?
Yeah, for us Scottish lot, not like you guys, we're not really used to it. So we had a couple of trial runs. So we did North Riding Gundog Open Show, which was on the same day as North of England HPR, which was just up Darlington direction, so about 3 hours south of me. And then we did Cheshire County Open Show. So we had a couple of trial runs with the gazebo and the outdoor arrangement, which went very well. But then it was different at Southern Counties because you couldn't set your gazebo up at the car. So we all traipsed in and back and forward, and you learn as you go along. So we didn't have a trolley, and we took 3 trips back and forward to the car, which was great for the daily steps, but for not quite so good. But yeah, we got set up. We had friends John Evans and Peter Pavey that a lot of people will know with pointers, and they set up first, and then we had our tent next to theirs, and then Ricky Furnell and Liam Dowse had theirs next to theirs, and then we had people behind us that we knew. So it was all very social and felt pleasant and felt relaxed because we all had our dogs in one place, and felt very safe because we were all keeping an eye on each other's dogs and each other's possessions. We didn't have, difficult dogs on the bench next door, or one dog in one tent and one dog somewhere else. So by all intents and purposes, I think it was a good start, and hopefully it'll carry on being a useful way to go on like that.
Yes, I was about to ask you, do you think they'll maintain it even when all this is over? Because as you say, it is obviously we're used to it, but it is very much more social when you're chatting to the people either side of you or behind you.
Yeah. No, it definitely was, and I in most ways I hope it will stay. I mean, maybe we were lucky at Southern Counties. It was a nice day, which probably made for it. I don't know if we'd all feel the same if it was pouring down with rain and 80-mile-an-hour winds. Who knows? But I think the whole thing about it just felt, more social and safer and better for our dogs because they were all in the one place. I knew where they were, and as a lot of people, I've got more than one breed normally at a show, and to have various different things in different places never works. And sometimes we're lucky and we get what we call free benching at the end, which is the leftovers that no breed has, so we can pile all the dogs together in one corner. But that happens very, very infrequently. So as often as not, you have one breed in one area and another breed in another area, which is a nightmare. So being able to have them all in the same place was great.
And of course, as time goes by, you're going to come up against the people who will arrive at the show venue at 6 o'clock in the morning to get the best tent space.
Well, we had better than that. We had some terrier people were arriving on Saturday night. Yeah, we had terrier people that set up their tent in front of our Gundog tent, if you like, on Saturday night for the show on Sunday. So they were well prepared. I don't know if I'd have confidence in ours not blowing off. in the middle of the night. But yeah, so it has already started, pitched up the night before.
So the Gundog people are watching tonight in their droves. You got Graham Osborne is watching, Nicholas Spencer, Madeline Rainey's watching, Emma Archibald, Tom Irvin.
All these people I haven't seen for ages and ages.
Mr. Forte is watching as well, Michael Forte.
Yeah. Interestingly, he gave our Weimaraner puppy the puppy stakes in Midland Counties, and he won his second CC last weekend.
Oh, very good.
Yeah,
good judge. He always knows a good dog. So anyway, let's kick off here. Let's go right back to the beginning, David. When you were growing up, were your parents involved in the sport, or what drew you into the sport of dog showing?
No, they weren't involved at all, and they still aren't involved at all. They're not really dog people. They're not really animal people. I'm a bit of an anomaly, that I'm a bit different to them in that, they have a house in a fairly rural location, but now don't have any dogs at all. We used to always have a Labrador, but we lost our last Labrador a couple of years ago. And growing up, I was just a bit more animally and country, if you like, than they were. I went to a fairly rural primary school, so I had a lot of friends that were farmers or had, horses or certainly dogs and things. So it kind of attracted me, that aspect of it. So I had a couple of friends that had farms, and the farm animal aspect and sheep and cows and poultry I enjoyed as well. And then always wanted a dog, but could never have one. I was always told I could never have one. And then we found, my first dog owning experience was everything you shouldn't do. We found an advert for Labrador puppies in the local paper. We went to see them at home. We still never saw the mother. We never saw the father. We never saw the rest of the litter. We were brought we were brought two puppies out. We wanted a black one, and they brought a yellow one and a black one, which meant that we didn't really get an option. And of course, as per a lot of people that go as pet owners, as I was certainly then, to look at puppies, we were completely charmed and enchanted with this little black bundle, so off he came home with us. And he is the dog that kind of taught me everything and started me off, because we started with obedience with him. I did some obedience. I did a bit of kind of everything with him, and then got involved in what was KCJO, but is now called YKC, and did some obedience with YKC. And I think we qualified for Crufts once as well. But as well as that, I had one of the Dunfermline KCGO days, I decided, or was kind of coerced into having a go at junior handling, which I knew nothing about because I'd only done obedience. So it was very different to do this junior handling thing. So I did it and was last in the class that I was in, and decided that this dog showing lot were awful and horrible, and it was the most boring thing I'd ever done in my life. And how times change. So I kind of, through obedience, I kind of got involved with various different people who showed dogs and did obedience as well. So that's also where my interest in Gordons developed, because the first Gordon I showed was a dog bred by Carol Gill, who was owned by a lady called Evie Johnson, called Diptonia North and South. And I showed him a bit, and then, as you kind of do when you're a kind of youngish handler, people ask you to show other dogs. So I got asked to show other different Gordons, and I got asked to show other different breeds, and then it just kind of went on from there, really.
And would you say that Gordons would be your breed above all at the moment?
It's a tricky one, because I'm very, very between them and Weimaraners. I'm struck on Gordons because I have a great mentor in Josie Badley, who is Lourdes Gordon setters, who the Diptonia dog that I mentioned was sired by a Lourdes dog and out of a Carrick bitch, so I had excellent breeding. He wasn't himself maybe the best dog in the world, but he had excellent breeding. And then I came into Gordons through Josie, and Josie then had a dog called Lourdes Bootlegger, which was by Carol Gill's Diptonia Brahms and List dog, a dog that was really underused, but a great producer. And I showed him, and then showed other dogs for Josie. So I have a great kind of, if you like, kind of emotional involvement with Gordon setters. But then Weimaraners came into the equation not that long after, firstly through Marion McAngus, and then along with Anne-Marie Thompson, we then had Gun Up News at Rutalis from Stephen and Patsy, who was the first dog that I made up. She was actually made up on the same day that Inquisitor, the dog that I had, was made up as well. So Weimaraners have been there from the start as well. So it's a very difficult balance between the two. And dare I say it, I like my Gordons an awful lot. Gordons as a breed are maybe a bit different now to what they were previously, and some types
Just
of things.
bear with me for 2 seconds because there appears to be a problem streaming to Facebook at the moment, and I'm not sure what's going on. So just bear with me while I try and then see what's happening here.
Technology is great when it works.
Yeah, never come across this before. Somebody could just send me a message that we're still broadcasting on Facebook. I'd appreciate it. We'll continue because we're still on YouTube. So Gordon setters, they have to be really good to be glamorous, if that's the right word.
They shouldn't be glamorous. They're not a glamorous breed.
Wrong word. Wrong word to use.
Some of my slight problem and difficulty with people who judge them comes in, because they like a lot of breeds, they are almost being changed, dare I say it, by this obsession with wanting great big long full coats that look immaculate and perfectly presented, and clips to within an inch of their life and scissors to within an inch of their life. But it's not what the breed is all about. You know, the breed standard calls for rugged, and that's not what they're all about. So yes, they shouldn't be, you know, unkempt and untidy and unprepared, but at the same time, they're not a glamorous breed. They shouldn't have glamour. Although I know what you mean. They shouldn't be a breed that should be entirely glamorous, but to have a good one, they I think, as with all setters, you know, if you've got a good setter, be it English, red and white, Irish or Gordon, I think the setters stand up well in groups because they are imposing. They're, you know, a well structured setter has an imposing outline, and with a coat itself off against. So yeah.
So what makes a good Gordon?
Type and movement. Certainly movement is a big thing in the breed, which I struggle with, because a lot of them seem to not be able to move correctly. So for me, a good Gordon's got to have a good, very typical head, not a little smaller, narrower, longer Irish setter style head, not a blocky short head, but you want the depth rather than the width in the head. You want that type that comes from the head shape, what the old breed people used to call brick on brick head, you know, the defined stop and the depth through the muzzle and through the skull. And then the conformation as well, because the conformation is I mean, I've seen lots of photos and lots of videos of group winners abroad, mostly, who struggle on the conformation aspect. You know, we don't want upright shoulders and sloping top lines and tails sticking up in the air. That's not what the Gordon setter's about. We don't want length of body and length of rib. They should be a relatively short backed breed. So, you know, a dog that is not entirely compact in its outline, but well constructed and balanced at both ends, level in its top line, and one that can move, you know, something that can move in front and behind. You know, there's an awful lot of breeds at the moment, as we hear many people saying, people don't understand front construction, and I think that's entirely correct for a lot of breeds, and a lot of the breeds I'm involved with, it's certainly correct for. So, you know, this balance of construction and moderation, you don't want this excessive hind angulation where the hocks are in a different county to the front end of the dog. So there's moderation and balance, as well as this, you know, not glamorous and not over presented. You want just something, you want a dog that is just moderate all through, really.
So that brings me to my next question. On you say you don't want them over exaggerated in particularly rear angulation, etc., etc. This trend that is creeping in, where within setters and particularly Weimaraners, of over exaggerated. Almost, I don't want to use the term, but I'm going to have to, American type. How's that to be dealt with? Because it is not typical.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not, I wouldn't say, I know what you mean by American type, but I mean, there are a lot of good dogs, there are a lot of good Gordons in America, and a lot of good Weimaraners in America.
Yes, absolutely.
And an awful lot of positive influence, particularly in Weimaraners in the past, from American dogs that I've come across here. So I think we see in both countries, America and here, and probably in Australia, the exaggeration that creeps in, because it looks, I think, to the untrained or the unknowledgeable eye, it probably looks imposing or striking, or, you know, a dog that is a little bit upright in shoulder and a bit sloping in its top line and a bit over-angulated behind probably looks almost dramatic in its outline, and there's just a bit more drama and maybe a little bit more a bit more to the dog in terms of the way its outline looks, in terms of it being eye-catching. But just because it's eye-catching or striking or a bit sort of posh-looking doesn't mean it's correct. So it's all about not being like lemmings and not awarding dogs just because, well, it's got, you know, 20 green stars or 30 tickets, or it's won 3 groups. Well, it might have done that, but it might not still be correct. And that applies to all breeds, that we see in all breeds, that there are sometimes dogs that get on a bit of a roll, but there are other possibly better examples of the breed as well that get a bit overlooked, because people don't always have the confidence to put something down that's not correct because they judge it a little bit on history rather than on what's in front.
So when you started off in Gordon's, how long did it take you to start achieving sort of success within the breed?
Probably quite a while, because the Gordon lot, not so much now maybe, but in the past there was very much you have to do your apprenticeship before you're allowed to do anything else. And they kind of, as with many breeds, they almost looked, some breeds look a bit dimly on people that come in and want to be successful, because you should sit in the back rows and wait your turn, which I've never ever been a fan of doing in any aspect, be it dogs or now sheep, because I show sheep as well. So it took me a while. My first dog that I showed with Josie was Lourdes Bootlegger. He won a few best puppies in a few classes, and I think he might have got a reserve ticket, but I can't remember. He didn't win an awful lot. He probably should have done better, but that's just the way it went. After that, I then had a bitch partnership with Josie, which was his niece, and we did make her up. She only won 3 tickets. She wasn't everybody's taste. She was maybe just a little bit big for some, but she got made up. And then after that, I then went on to show a dog after that for somebody else that won about, I think he won 25 tickets, show champion Flaxseed Freelander, who was owned by Kate Futcher, bred by Vicky Lines. So it probably took me working through about 2 or 3 dogs and maybe about, I don't know, 8, maybe 10 years in Gordon's before you sort of were almost accepted into the fold, dare I say. And that. It's very different in Weimaraner's, I have to say. In Weimaraner's, we have an awful lot of first-time owners who come into the breed with a good dog and will make up a good dog, which I think is great. And we have, I always use Weimar's and as an example of a breed that is actually, I find, very enjoyable to show, because nobody has any great dramas. Nobody really has any great edge about things. We have, dogs that go to shows and we have a good time. And then we have an awful lot of social contact with people afterwards. John and Peter and Jackie will bring food and drink, and Elaine and all the people from that sort of side of things will bring stuff. Jill will bring things. Everybody kind of gets involved, and we all have a kind of social after the judging anyway. So it's a pleasant breed to be involved in, and the judging generally, people will reward good dogs, and it doesn't really go on anything else, which is just what we want. And I had kind of said this to various people, and it wasn't until somebody came from another breed into Weimaraners and they said, "Oh yeah, we see what you mean now. It is different in Weimaraners. It's so much more pleasant."
Yeah. And when you started off, what sort of people greatly influenced you in what you were going to do and in how you were doing, etc.?
In Gordon's, definitely Josie, badly, without a doubt. I mean, Josie has probably one of the most, if not the most successful Gordon Setter kennel, and both success here and abroad. She's bred, I think, just over 30 champions, most of them here, many that went abroad, some that went to Europe, some that went to Canada and America as well. And I had a huge, great in-depth knowledge, not only just of Gordon's, but of construction, and was an incredible judge, I thought, as well. She could cast her eye over at a dog at a distance and very quickly and pick up what was wrong with it almost straight away. She had an incredible eye for a dog, an incredible knowledge for construction and conformation, and an incredible understanding of pedigrees and breeding as well, because she didn't Always. In fact, very rarely did she use the dog that was, the popular dog or the winning dog of the moment. She would go and use something that she felt would bring in particular aspects.
Okay, David, I'm going to interrupt you there for a second because we appear to have completely frozen on Facebook. I'm going to have to end this broadcast and just re-establish with a link.
Okay.
Okay, so just bear with me for 2 seconds.
No worries.